Okay, so welcome to another deep dive. Today we're looking at a story that I think really packs a punch, and it's found in the book of First Kings, chapter 20.
Yeah, it's a good one.
We're going to see some real intense drama play out. Plus, I think there's a lot we can take away from it even today.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Lots of timeless stuff in this one.
So to set the scene, we're dealing with two main players here. You've got King Ben-hadad of Syria, and he's a real powerful dude.
He is, and he's not coming alone either, right? He
Exactly.
shows up in Samaria with not only his own army, but also a whole posse of 32 other kings.
Oh, wow.
All their armies, horses, chariots. It's like a who's who of ancient military might all rolled into one.
So it's safe to say this guy Ben-hadad, he isn't messing around, right? He lays siege to Samaria, and it's pretty clear he means business.
Yeah, he's not there for tea and crumpets, that's for sure. So he sends a message to Ahab, the king of Israel, and he's like, all right, listen up. I want all your silver. I want all your gold. And while you're at it, hand over your wives and children, too.
Talk about an entrance.
Right, just lays it all out there. Oh, what's kind of crazy is Ahab actually agrees to it at first. I mean, can you imagine?
Oh, I can only imagine the pressure he must have been under. Facing down this massive combined army.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it felt like total surrender was the only option.
Yeah, I think it was probably a cut your losses kind of move. But then Ben-hadad, he sees this as a weakness and decides to push even further.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So he sends another message, and this time it's basically, all right, round two, tomorrow, my guys are going to come and just take whatever they want from your houses, anything that catches their fancy.
So not just taking their valuables, he's basically saying he can ransack their homes.
Exactly. He's making a statement, establishing dominance. It's just utter humiliation piled on top of everything else.
That's harsh. So what does Ahab do? Does he just give in at that point?
You know what? He doesn't. This
Yeah.
time he actually pushes back. He talks to the elders and the people, and they're like, no way, you cannot agree to this.
So they kind of give him a backbone.
Right. And so Ahab sends word back to Ben-hadad, and he basically says, look, I went along with the first demand, but this is too much. I can't do it. And you can just feel the tension ratcheting up.
It's like a total turning point.
Totally. And right when it seems like things are about to get really, really ugly, this prophet shows up.
Oh, okay.
And he's got a message directly from God for Ahab. And the message is, don't worry, I'm going to give you victory over these Syrians.
Wow, so a little divine intervention in the situation.
That's right. It's like this classic underdog story, right?
Shit. So how's this supposed to happen? Does God just snaps fingers and poof, the Syrian army's gone?
Well, no, it's actually more interesting than that. God tells Ahab to gather a very specific group of people, the young attendants of the provincial governors, and there's only like 232 of them.
Wait, hold on. He's going up against this massive army with just over 200 guys.
Yeah, it seems crazy, right?
That's insane.
But there's more. They're then followed by a larger force of 7,000 Israelites, which is still pretty small compared to Ben-hadad's massive alliance.
Okay, so a small force, but still, what's the strategy here?
Timing. God tells them to launch a surprise attack at noon, right when Ben-hadad and all those other kings are in their tents having a little party.
Oh, so they're caught off guard?
Totally off guard. And not just off guard. The text says they're drunk.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Talk about bad timing. So this small Israelite force, they just completely rout the Syrian army.
Yeah.
It's a total victory.
That's incredible. It's what a powerful image, God working through those who seem the least likely.
Yeah, totally. It really shows you that strength doesn't always come in the way we expect it to. But that's not the end of the story. The prophet comes back to Ahab with a warning. He says, get ready, because Ben-hadad, he's going to come back for round two.
So round one goes to God.
Big time. But the Syrians, they're not giving up that easily. They try to figure out what went wrong, and they come up with this explanation. Well, their God is a God of the hills. That's why they beat us there. So if we fight them on the plains, we'll definitely win.
So they're kind of putting God in a box.
Exactly. It's like they're saying God is limited to certain places, and it shows a real misunderstanding of who God is.
Yeah, very limited view of God.
Right. They're thinking of God as this local deity, kind of like the gods they're used to, instead of the all-powerful God that he is.
It's like they missed the point entirely.
Totally. So, sure enough, Ben-hadad returns the next year with a new plan. He gathers his forces, and this time he positions them strategically on the plain, ready for a rematch.
Okay, so round two, fight.
And once again, God steps in. He sends another message to Ahab saying, don't worry, you're going to win again, even on the plains. I'm going to show them that I am God of everything, not just the hills.
That's powerful. It's like God is saying, watch this.
Exactly. And the outcome is even more dramatic this time. The Syrian army is absolutely destroyed. The text says 100,000 of their foot soldiers are killed in one day.
Wow.
And then another 27,000 are killed when a wall collapses on them in the city called Ephek.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a total defeat. Ben-hadad, he barely manages to escape with his life.
Like God just showing his power over and over.
Right. Like defying all odds, proving that he's in control. But then there's this twist. Ben-hadad, after escaping this massive defeat, he sends his servants to Ahab to beg for mercy.
Okay.
They come dressed in sackcloth, with ropes around their heads. It's a total display of humility and desperation.
Yeah.
And they say, look, our king Ben-hadad, he's begging you, please spare his life.
So what does Ahab do? Does he take revenge?
Nope. He does something really unexpected.
Yeah.
He calls Ben-hadad his brother, makes a covenant with him, and lets him go free.
Seriously, after all that.
Yep. It's a really surprising turn of events, and it might seem like a good thing, like Ahab's being merciful, but it actually goes against what God wanted. Yeah, this is where things get complicated. Because Ahab, despite witnessing God's power firsthand, he chooses to disobey.
So what happens?
A prophet shows up.
Of course, a prophet.
And this is a pretty dramatic scene. He tells another prophet to hit him and then disguises himself.
Oh, wow.
He goes to Ahab and tells him this parable about a guy who's supposed to guard a prisoner but lets him escape. Ahab hears the parable and says, well, that guard, he deserves to be punished.
Sounds fair.
Right. But then the prophet reveals who he really is and says to Ahab, you're that guard. You let go of the man God wanted you to destroy, and because of that, your life will be taken in Ben-hadad's place, and your people will suffer in place of his people.
So serious consequences for Ahab's disobedience.
Very serious. And I think this story really highlights the importance of obedience, even when it's tough, even when it doesn't make sense to us.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, what can we learn from this ancient story and apply to our lives today? And how does this whole thing strengthen our faith?
Oh, tons of stuff.
I mean, first off, it just screams God's sovereignty, right? God is clearly in control. The Syrians thought their gods were tied to certain places, but God proved them wrong.
Totally. It reminds us that no matter what situation we're in, God is bigger than that. Our limitations don't limit him.
That's so reassuring.
Right. It's like even when we're facing something huge and scary, we can remember that God is still in control, even if we don't understand what he's doing.
And it's not just about God's power, it's also about how he chooses to use it. He gave Israel victory not through their strength, but through his intervention. It's about trusting in him, even when the odds seem impossible.
It's about faith, right? Like, it's not about us figuring everything out or having all the answers. It's about trusting God, even when we don't see the whole picture.
And the thing about Ahab's disobedience, it's a huge wake-up call. He did the right thing at first, winning those battles, but then he chose to go his own way instead of listening to God.
And that had huge consequences. It shows us that obedience isn't a pick and choose kind of thing. It's about being fully committed, even when it's hard, even when we think we know better.
Yeah, sometimes doing the right thing might not actually be the right thing in God's eyes.
Yeah.
It's about trusting his guidance, even when it doesn't make sense to us.
Absolutely. It's like our understanding of right and wrong is limited, but God sees the bigger picture, and his ways are always higher than our ways.
It also makes me think about humility. The Syrians were so arrogant, thinking they could manipulate the situation by fighting on different terrain. And then Ahab, even after seeing God work miracles, he still thought he knew better.
It's a good point. It's like pride and arrogance can blind us to the truth. But when we're humble, we're open to God's guidance, and that's where real strength comes from.
It's kind of like recognizing that we're not in control. It's God who's in control.
Yeah, and surrendering to that, trusting in that, that's where we find true freedom and peace.
And I think the prophets play such an important role in this story, too. They're like God's messengers giving guidance and direction.
Yeah, and I think we can apply that to our lives today by seeking out wise counsel. You know, people who can help us see things from God's perspective.
Maybe mentors, spiritual leaders, even friends who can offer a different perspective.
Exactly. It's about surrounding ourselves with people who can help us stay on the right path, who can remind us of God's truth when we start to stray.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into 1 Kings chapter 20, I think it's clear that there's a lot more to this story than just a historical account of a battle. It's packed with timeless lessons about God's power, his sovereignty, the importance of faith and obedience, and the need for humility.
And these are lessons that are just as relevant today as they were back then.
So here's something to think about as you go about your day. Think about a time when you faced something really difficult. maybe a huge challenge, a tough decision, something that felt impossible.
Yeah.
How might the lessons we've talked about today change the way you view that situation?
That's a good question.
And what would it look like to face those challenges with the same kind of faith and obedience that we see in this story? It's a challenge for all of us, right?
Definitely. It's a lifelong journey, but it's a journey worth taking.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.